Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, and today is a very exciting day because I get to talk about my Prelude, my 1989 Honda Prelude 2.0 SI four-wheel steering. I am never going to say that all in a row again. I'm just going to call it my Prelude from now on. I have had this Prelude since I was 16 years old. Uh, Not technically my first car. Uh, uh, First car I had for all of about 4 days, and the ball joint gave out and the wheel fell off. But this is close enough. This is the, first car I've actually owned in my name. Back when I was 16, my dad and my grandpa split the cost to buy this car. When I was a kid, 16 years old, I sat in this car and I knew. I mean, really, it was probably the third or fourth car I've ever sat in the driver's seat of, and immediately I knew this was my car. I felt I fit perfectly. It felt like my car just before I even bought it. I knew it was mine, and the thing with parents when, especially when you're a teenager, is your parents are always going to get you what you don't want. So when I said I wanted this Prelude, he was like, "Oh, let's go look at other cars." My dad was like, "Let's go look at other cars." So we went looking around and we found another car that was pretty nice. It was like a Mitsubishi Diamante or something. It was very clean, reasonably priced, and I also liked that car. So I told my dad, "I like this car." And he's like, "Oh, let's go look at the Prelude." And I was all excited about this other Mitsubishi. Once I realized the game that I needed to play, I had to think, well, I really do want the Prelude. Uh, so, uh, so I said, "Oh, I actually really like the Mitsubishi more. We should get that one." So he says, "Oh, I think we'll just get the Prelude." And here we go. And ever since I've had this car, I have put personally uh, about 200,000 miles on this car. We bought it with like 114,000 miles, and it is now up to 294 and change. So I have put a lot of miles on this car personally. When I say it has 200,000 miles, I don't mean driving it easy, cruising on the freeway. I did every stupid thing that a teenager could do to a car. This car is like, it's not fast, but I still drove it like it was fast, and I drove the hell out of this car. And I have wiped it out on Angeles Crest. I spun out and ended up ass end into a mountain. Amazing that this car has survived all of the stupid things that I did when I was a kid. So let's take a walk around of the car. Let's look inside of it, look in the trunk, look under the hood, and then I'm going to do a little bit of maintenance on this car. I have quite a few things to do, but most importantly right now, I have to change a couple of seals on the distributor and the crank angle sensor, cylinder position sensor. So we're going to do that probably today. I don't know that we're going to get into anything else, but I do also have to do some work on the door, which is going to involve removing the bumper, removing the fender. I don't know if I'm going to get into that today, but we'll see. So to talk a little bit about the steering system on this car, as I mentioned, it has four-wheel steering. Four-wheel steering came as an option on the third generation Prelude, and I had it. I swapped it in myself, and it turned out to be a fairly easy swap. I just had to do a little bit of cutting in the spare tire compartment. There was like a little brace that the four-wheel steering car did not have, that the two-wheel steering version did have. Other than that, it was just the subframe, the rear rack, the front rack, and a steering shaft down the middle. It's a very simple setup. This four-wheel steering system is incredibly reliable. It has never given me troubles. And what I did while I was doing the work was I replaced the front rack and with a rebuild. And that rebuild front rack just really made a huge difference in how this car handles and how it feels. It in terms of handling, the best car I've ever had, because it gives you lots of feedback. The steering's pretty heavy for a car with power steering, but it gives you a lot of feedback, and it is just a joy to drive. For really tight, windy roads, this thing is amazing. Nothing is as much fun to drive in tight, windy roads. In my opinion, in my experience, it's one of these cars where it doesn't need to be fast because it has so much handling. There's only two cars that I have really gone against in the canyons as a stupid teenager, and have just had my ass handed to me. The first one was a Ferrari 360, and I mean, obviously, you spend $250,000 on a car, it had better outhandle a $3,000-$4,000 Honda. It just hands down. The other car that just totally wiped the floor with me was a very well built Miata. Of course, you can build a Miata to do anything, and thankfully I have a Miata. So one of these days, once I get to put some work into it, I'll be able to do a little comparison between the two. Right now, in terms of comparison, the Prelude is better than the Miata because the Prelude runs, and it has a working suspension. So we'll do that. We'll save that comparison for quite a ways down the road. Walking around the car, you may notice the color is not quite the actual original color, and that's because I had it repainted Suzuka blue of the Honda S2000. It has a lot of pearl and metallic in it, and the S2000 in blue is one of my favorite cars. I would love to have one, but maybe someday. We have the four-wheel steering badge. That's how you know it's four-wheel steering. I mean, aside from the wheels actually turning, the back wheels turning. But that's what makes it four-wheel steering. It's not four-wheel steering until it has that 4WS badge. The wheels are Rota Circuit 8s with Bridgestone Potenza RE71Rs. I love these tires. I have another set of 17-inch wheels, but I just like the 15s better. I like having the sidewall, and these tires are just my favorite. Best tires I've had so far. The rear end is mostly untouched. I've got a LSD Motorsports exhaust. This is actually the prototype. LSD Motorsports made a few things for the Prelude, mainly for group buys on preludepower.com. And he actually, the guy's name was Mike, and he actually made all of the prototype parts on my car. So when he was done fitting the prototypes and welding them together and all that stuff, the very early prototypes, which is just pieces of exhaust piping that he would weld together, the very first actual production piece he would give to me. He gave me an intake and an exhaust. I'm not sure what else he did for the Prelude community, but he was a really cool guy, and really great to work with, and his payment was these parts. So I'm really grateful to that. I have Wilwood calipers down here. These are the 4-piston calipers. They're actually available on Summit Racing. I had to do my brakes a couple of years back, and I was looking at parts for the Maverick anyway, and I thought, oh, I wonder if they have anything in terms of braking systems for the Prelude. And sure enough, they do. I was actually really looking for steel braided front brake lines, but these calipers turned up, and I just couldn't resist. It does improve braking quite a bit. In fact, I learned the hard way just by testing it, road testing it, that I'll ruin the brake master cylinder before I lock up the tires, because these tires are so intense. They're so sticky. The hood, you'll notice I don't have the badge there. I didn't shave the badge. This is actually a VIS Racing carbon fiber hood. So moving in under the hood here, we're going to start with the hood itself. You can see that the hood, it's not an optical illusion. This hood actually slopes down as it moves to the passenger side. And looking at it, it's obvious that the hood rod is what causes it to work. Now, the hilarious thing about this is that all VIS carbon fiber hoods come pre-worked because they made a mold off of an original hood that was worked. It was already worked. So they must have gotten a junkyard car or something that had a lot of work done to it, because the mold they made was warped. So if you buy a VIS carbon fiber hood for the Honda Prelude, it will be a little bit warped. I will put money onto that unless they have updated their mold or something. But this is a VIS hood. Label for it's here. Down in here, I've got the LSD Motorsports intake, the Gladman strut bar on the front, going to the shocks coilovers that I have here. Optima red top battery, and the heat shield. This shiny heat shield is actually the latest addition to my car. I was at a junkyard and I saw a car with this clean shiny heat shield, and I didn't have one. One I had was really beat up and not even aluminum. So I never got so excited to see a heat shield in my life. So I scooped that up, bought it. Steel braided clutch line. I also found that at a junkyard. That was a really great find. I've never seen anyone actually make a steel braided clutch line, so this had to have been a custom job. It's all stock beyond that for the most part. Power steering. The alternator. This is an alternator from a 1994 Cord. I did that because the stereo that I had just was really wrecking every alternator that I put in. It was the original alternator was something like a 70 amp or 60 amp alternator. This one's a 90. So when I switched that over, all I had to do was keep the original pulley and drill it out a little bit for the new alternator. So that was a really great upgrade. I stopped burning through alternators. I think this was only the second alternator I've had in 15 years since I've made that update. Looking here, you can see what I have to do today. This is actually a very familiar story, because underneath the alternator, I've got my coolant hose. It's taking on a bunch of oil, and it's not bloated yet, but it very well could be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the distributor, pull the crank angle sensor, replace both of those seals, and clean up the oil and see what the state of that hose is. And I could probably stand to replace the gasket for the valve cover. I'm not going to do that today, but I might do that soon. Well, that sure turned into a lot of work. Tune in next time to find out how I got myself into this mess and how I intend to get myself out of it. Thanks for watching.